ourselves the elite.
Better than you, and you know it.
If not us, who? And if not now, when?
We don't care about race or gender or sex or religion. If you're an elite athlete, we want you.
Change the world. We are going to change the whole universe!
This is what you call a paradigm shift.
He saw what wrestling was and realized what it could be.
All Elite Wrestling!
For the 18th time, it's Monday morning, and you know what that means. It's time for the next chapter of the only professional wrestling podcast that is changing the world every week. This is Seeing the Elite, an AEW podcast. I am your host, Bryce Reed. I am joined by my friend, my co-host, my tag team partner, Mr. Jonathan Davis.
How's it going, dude?
We are officially on the road to All Out. 6 weeks stand between us and Chicago, and boy, is that exciting for us where we sit. We're going to be there live. We've just sort of worked together our schedule with different things that we're doing all night. We're going to actually have enough to kind of do like an interesting sort of travelogue thing where we have, podcast things we do every night, and oh man, we've got so much in store for the weekend, and things just keep getting thrown in there from different places. So I'm super excited for it.
It's really random, the things that we're actually doing stuff that we just not doing, but like have on our list, because like it's a wide gamut of things.
Right. Well, and we'll be discussing that more in Discord. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Jonathan and I are two friends, fans, lovers of professional wrestling who are here every single Monday morning with all the latest news from All Elite Wrestling. This is not a sports entertainment show. It's an entertaining sports show supported by fans like you from all over the world on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, podcast services everywhere. Subscribe, review, give us 5 stars just like Meltzer. It makes us feel so sweet. Jonathan, how sweet?
Too sweet, buddy. Too
sweet. Oh, man. Facebook.com/Seeing the Elite if you want to stay updated, or on Twitter at Seeing the Elite with no G, tinyurl.com/Seeing the Elite to get invite to our Discord server where we are having a blast talking with all Elite Wrestling fans from all over the world. Shout out to our new champ, Shane O'Mac, who in his infinite generosity is offering a free t-shirt to the winner of our Discord server scorecard league at All Out.
Should probably think of a name for it at some point, but it's real nice of him to buy me a t-shirt.
Yeah, sure. A t-shirt of the winner's choice in addition to that sweet Discord server gold. Oh man, kind of an interesting week for this one, sort of the fallout from Fight for the Fallen. JD on the time codes as always if you're looking for something specific, but we're going to get right into it as we usually do with a quote. Quote, "I haven't been asked about CM Punk by the executive vice presidents. Do we need him? No. Would it be a huge pop to get him? Yes. I don't know, man. I don't know what his attitude or mindset is, but I think our roster is jam-packed right now. So we're not looking to headhunt WWE. We never were. That's one of the things that's funny about the guys getting all this double salaries and all that stuff. We didn't want to be WCW 98 or Impact in 2011 where you're just bringing in old WWE guys. We don't want that. We have enough guys that no one's ever seen before, and that's what we want to do. We have a lot of young guys like Jungle Boy, MJF. Both of those guys are 23 years old. That appeals to a different demographic. My daughters are 12, don't like wrestling, but they like Jungle Boy. They love Riverdale. They love Luke Perry. They like Jack Perry. They like the fact that he's a young guy, a good-looking guy, but they're almost in the same age group, or at least they can have a crush on a 23-year-old kid. WWE doesn't have 23-year-old kids. They put them in NXT, and 5 years later, when they're 27 or 28, they come up. We wanted to focus on the younger demographic, which I think is missing in wrestling. The teenage heartthrobs that they used to have in every wrestling territory up until the last 10 years in WWE. That, of course, comes from Chris Jericho. Jonathan, I wanted to put this in here both because we usually start with a quote and I needed one, and also because I wanted to get your sort of feelings on what he's saying here.
To me, it feel like when was this quote?
This week.
No,
pretty much after
right after
the Punk thing was announced.
That's mainly what I was asking. It's like, if it was right after the Punk thing, I see a real good reason why he's saying this. It's him being Jericho, because it's Jericho. He's got to be that heel, as well as he's trying to shoot down some people, and also he's trying to, he's being Jericho. He's building an angle, right? So that whichever way it goes, we're not going to say, you and I will not say one way or the other what's going to happen. We're taking the AEW stance of we're not talking about it.
Well, and we don't know, we can't say what'll happen because we don't have any sort of insight into what's going to happen.
We can speculate all we want to, but my opinion on this whole thing is like AEW just needs to step as far away from this as possible, and unless they're going to actually bring him in, just don't let the trolls be trolls and let hype build for no reason, because then you're going to bite yourself in the ass.
See, I don't think they need to come out and say anything in it either, though, because they didn't at all in either.
No, they didn't. So I feel like there's a lot of different ways with this quote. He's building up the young guys. He's building angles. He's, taking some minor pot shots at WWE. I know there's a lot of people on Reddit that I've seen that don't like this and are getting annoyed every time someone from AEW takes a shot at WWE. But it's typical squared circle jerking. If Triple H says anything, he's like, oh man, he's opening, good competition. But if Cody says, what he said after Fight for the Fallen, then people lose their goddamn minds.
Yeah, that's a huge theme. And we've kind of shied away from being too negative on WWE on this show because it's not what it's about. Like, we try not to talk about WWE if we can. It's difficult in the context we're in now, and in the sort of head-on way that AEW is dealing with WWE. But
we're kind of getting to that point where we're going to start having to slightly.
The pervading wisdom on Squared Circle, or the thing you see a lot, is everybody like, hey, you can like both, okay? And that's fine. Like, you can, just like you can like both the Vikings and the Patriots if they're facing each other. But is that really fun to do that?
You're still going to have a preference,
right? And also like, there's nothing wrong with picking a team in a fight. No. You know what I mean? And so this idea that like, and the I wouldn't say the products are demonstrably different at this point. There are things AEW is doing that are very WWE stuff, and they're kind of pointing to that because, I mean, there are things about WWE that they really love, but you can like both. That's true. You can also not just like both.
Yeah.
Right?
But and you can't just sit here and get salty about people being passionate about AEW and enjoying the shots that they're taking at WWE. If you're passionate about WWE and you're enjoying the shots that they're taking at AEW, cool. Absolutely, dude. No salt off our back.
I also don't think you can sit back and say there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't like WWE, because there are a lot of reasons.
Then that's fine. But, you can't as a fan, you can't just sit here and just like be salty that they are acting as competitors.
Yeah.
They are. Now, they're not necessarily doing underhanded shit, which is very easy to do in the wrestling industry.
Sure.
They're being upfront about it. You know, shit talk them if you want to shit talk them. Don't try to sneak around and do some shady shit, which some could say the Evolve thing was shady shit. In my opinion, yes, it was.
Yeah.
In someone else's opinion, no, it isn't. But that's my opinion. I do agree that what he says with NXT, his ages are off, but I think he's being a little generous there. I mean, most of the guys that come out of NXT are not 27 or 28. They're
30, 32.
30. Yeah. The people, NXT is not pulling guys in until they're 27 or 28.
Right.
That's their prerogative. They want people to build a gigantic name for themselves first.
It's not even that. They're buying gigantic names so that no one else can have them. They have been for a while. I mean,
yeah, and that's the point where you're at. But he's right. Yeah, if you're going to say wrestling is for that 13 to 30-year-old demographic,
yeah,
which is what WWE has said for decades. WCW said it, and now AEW is working towards it, but not really going for it. They're just saying, like my shirt says, AEW is for everyone.
Right. They're also after lapsed fans, and most lapsed fans are, sort of older because they would have to be.
But like even still, you still need those young guys.
Yeah.
You need those young, quote unquote, good-looking guys, because that's who appeals to casual fans or the girlfriends in the room, the wives in the room.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess we should kind of talk. Did you watch the broadcast for Fight for the Fallen?
I watched a little bit of it, not all of it, because it's been a very busy week for me, but I did watch a bit of it. I understand everything that our friends in Discord said. I also talked to my dad about it, and he told me about it, and we can talk about his opinion after yours, because I'm sure they probably match up.
Yeah, they're probably pretty similar. And people asked me about this week in the Discord, tinyurl.com/seeing the elite for the invite. And my feelings on it were, I mean, there were a couple of things that were like, oh, okay. We didn't see the Sunny Kiss match with the librarian, Peter Apple.
I did watch his entrance on YouTube.
His entrance, fucking dope. His entrance was tight. So fucking tight. I was like, oh my God, like he put all this work into it. How did I didn't see it. And I feel terrible because to have a choreographed entrance is one thing. To nail it to the degree that he did was awesome.
Seemingly without any rehearsals.
Well, I mean, he must have put some in, but I don't know if he had a lot of time.
I mean, yes. I mean, like the whole production. I think I saw they did like a dry run, but they didn't have like a lot of time to practice that.
Sure, but you think some of those girls were probably JAG cheerleaders, right?
Oh, they all were.
Yeah, this is kind of what they do. It's not that hard for them to throw together a dance routine. But Sunny Kiss, despite having a dance background, and despite being a tremendous athlete, to throw it together that fast and to like do it as great as those girls were doing it, I thought that was awesome. And I thought I was ashamed that I didn't get to see it or participate in the reading sucks chance, during the library.
Yeah, I would have, but yeah, other people would have.
And I thought, yeah, JR, people complaining about JR, I think was correct. I don't think he was as loopy as other people let on, because I thought he was going to be off in this other fucking world. And I don't think he was there. I think the biggest problem was him kind of intentionally shit talking the way things were happening on the screen, like going in on the refs when he really wasn't supposed to be, and distinctly not doing his job.
I feel the same way. I don't feel like he was actually, Alzheimer'sing.
Yeah.
As was I've seen on Reddit. I don't really like that verb, but it kind of makes the most sense of how a lot of how he's been acting. I think he was really he was voicing his own opinions when he shouldn't have been, and not acting as a third-party observer, which is what he is supposed to be. He's supposed to be there as the third party.
He's really not supposed to be a third-party observer, though. He's supposed to be like a first-party observer. He's supposed to...
I just mean an unopinionated observer.
Right.
He was talking about things where he should not have an opinion. That's more of what I mean. It was strange. That was one of the things my dad complained about. My mom also complained about it because they do watch just wrestling stuff together for the most part. Mm-hmm. That he was very off. That he was not enjoying what he was doing. My dad specifically said the commentary was bad this time, other than. In his words, other than that masked guy, because Marvez was bad.
Yeah, Marvez was bad. And JR, I guess to be more specific about what we were talking about, throughout the Bucks match, he was talking about how like just in a really snide and shitty way, he'd bring up like, when they do the double sharpshooters, he's like, oh, one of those sharpshooters is illegal, by the way. It's like, yes, we know. It's a Bucks match. All right, there's Texas Tornado rules on it or whatever, like however you want to justify it. But the point of the matter is, whether he agrees with the rules being bent that way or not, it's not his place to tell you what, despite what you may think as a commentator, it's not his place to tell you his honest opinion on what's happening in the match.
Right.
He's supposed to be helping to tell the story, and shitting all over Rick Knox and what's happening in the ring and getting all lethargic because he doesn't like how the rules are being treated or whatever is not helping to tell the story of the match. It's just not. It's it's not a podcast. It's commentary. He has a job to be doing, and he's not doing it.
That is literally the best way to describe it, is that it's not a podcast. You are not on your show right now giving your review.
Right.
And he had a hard time separating that. That's one area where I keep hoping that if they want to keep JR and keep this commentary team as it is, it's fine for pay-per-views. It's not fine, but it's okay for pay-per-views. For a weekly show, we need other people in here.
Yeah.
Excalibur is great, but he cannot hold down this whole booth by himself. Marvez, as a sports journalist, would be a great interviewer backstage, would be fine. He is not good on the commentary table. This is the only second event for him, maybe third. I don't know if he was on Fyter Fest, but he has proven he can't handle it. He's trying to do too much of the sports journalist stuff, and he's not keeping up. So, and JR would be a good mentor and a good, occasional presence there.
And he's a smart voice to have for the Labs fans because they're comfortable with him, right? They're comfortable with his storytelling style. But I think, if I'm being honest right now, I think Excalibur by himself is better than this 3-man commentary team.
Yeah. Because most of the time when I'm listening to the commentary at Double or Nothing, I won't say Double or Nothing. JR was good at Double or Nothing.
Yeah, JR did a great job at Double or Nothing. We said as much afterwards.
Fyter Fest, Golden Boy, and Excalibur, man, they were great.
Yeah.
That was amazing. So the key thing here for me is, like you said, Excalibur is the key takeaway, and you have JR kind of just talking in his own thing. And yes, he is comforting, and he's good, and JR's good in the between the match segments. Between the matches, when they need to fill time, that's where JR's doing good. In the matches, I feel like the wrestlers are going too fast for him.
Well, he's not doing. They kind of hired him to do what was never his job in the first place, But he's kind of doing color now, but I don't think he's particularly gifted at that even. So
No, he's not. And it is what it is. I mean, I know they're trying. They have to. I don't know if they're trying. They have to be trying to find a week-to-week commentary team. But they're gonna have to do some work here because the commentary team they have right now, you have one guy that's doing great, and you have one guy who should be transitioning more into the senior advisor role that is his title. And then you have one guy who can't do it. He can't cut it. I'm sorry.
yeah,
I gave the guy a chance. He can't cut it.
yeah, he's had now 3 performances that were not where they should be. And that's fine. Michael Cole is he started out as a backstage correspondent forever. And then
Marvez would be great as a backstage correspondent.
Yeah.
Because they need someone. You need 2 backstage correspondents. And they have the lady. I can't remember her name for the life of me.
I thought it was Alicia Atout, but then it seems like they've changed to another lady. So
I remember, I don't know who it is, but I know it's been the same girl, lady. I remember seeing her at ringside at Fight for the Fallen, but I just can't remember her name because she hasn't appeared enough for me to place the name with the face.
Right.
But yeah, you need 2 backstage correspondents. Marvez will do fine at that because it's sports journalism. It's what he knows. Calling a match, calling play-by-play, calling color, he can't do it.
But that honestly wasn't my biggest problem with the broadcast. My biggest problem with the broadcast was the camera work. I felt like this time was actively pretty bad. They're doing the thing that WWE does that I really don't like, which is they change cameras on Move Impact, which for some reason seems to be this sort of pervading wisdom in sports that's like a good idea, or in wrestling particularly, people seem to think that's a good idea. As a viewer, it really doesn't work for me. I guess the idea is that it makes the moves seem more impactful, but all it does is confuse me visually as a viewer, and a lot of times makes them sort of miss coverage on big moves. No, I mean, this was no more apparent than when they did the glove throw from Pentagon to Aubrey Edwards. He took off the glove, he threw it to Aubrey. They missed it the first time.
That was great in the audience.
In the audience, it was fantastic because we didn't have the camera cutting around. But
my dad was confused about that, and I told him, I was like, oh, she fucked it up the first time. He's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, he throws.
Wish I could have seen that.
He throws the glove. They cut the camera. The camera was on her, so we would have seen her. Then they cut the camera to an angle where we can't see what happened for some fucking reason. Then they cut back to show that she missed it, so she throws it back. Then they show him throw it again, and again they miss it on the second time. It was just like, who is it? Why? Why? You could have kept that on a wide shot. It would have been better. I don't understand. Like, just leave it on the hard cam for that. And there were a lot of moves where they just throughout the thing, that was the thing that stuck out to me most about the production, was like, wow, like, guys, I don't need camera cuts here. I don't need that. Like, you could, if you had it in the frame, just leave it in the frame for now. It's fine.
Yeah, I actually was noticing a lot of that while we were at the show, because it's very obvious to when they're switching cameras, because the red light goes on and off on the camera.
Yeah.
And as someone that's constantly paying attention to 5 things at once, I kept noticing when the cameras were switching, and especially it was very obvious during the Cody the Brotherhood versus the Bucks match,
right,
how often they were switching cameras, and it was too quick.
Yeah, it was a lot, and I don't think it was necessary, and I don't think it helped the production. I would like to see them slow it down and cover things more competently as opposed to sort of focusing on trying to make the action seem more high octane with the cameras, because I don't think they need that. I think the action's already wild. That Lucha Brothers versus SCU match is wild on its own. You really don't need to be changing the cameras every 2 seconds. I don't think it needs it, which is probably the oldest man comment that I'm going to make on this show. But
well, it doesn't need that, and it also like it will make you motion sick the way that how often they do the cameras like that.
Won't make me motion sick. I don't get motion sick, bro.
Okay, fuck you then.
Being the Elite number 161 backstage at Fight for the Fallen. This episode cold opens with Jerry Lynn, who admits to the Bucks that he had always thought that they were twins. Nick corrects Jerry Lynn and cops to being 4 years younger than Matt. In other words, Matt, you could say, is his older brother. And of course, he breaks into the hysterics, hugs Matt for the bit. Matt's done with this bit, which I thought was great, that Matt's like, all right, Nick, we're done here. And then Jerry Lynn still gets a little misty-eyed and says, I miss my brother, which I'm sure is a reference to an angle of some kind, but I couldn't figure out what it was. I even asked in Discord, and people were like, yeah, I don't know. But I'm sure it's in reference to something in Jerry Lynn's career. I'm just not terribly familiar with it. Then we go to the title sequence next. The Bucks take the camera on a walk about Daly's place, and having been there, I can confirm that that's what it looks like. They talk about the setup being inspired by the South Park episode. They walk down to the stadium and tease doing a big show there one day. Even say, I mean, we ought to, because rent would be free. AEW headquarters is apparently located in the complex that houses TIAA Bank Stadium and Daly's place.
Oh, fuck. We should have looked for that.
Next, we see Sammy G in the back halls, who looks up from his phone to see Brandon Cutler. Sammy notices that Cutler has a bag and feigns excitement, asking Cutler what match he's in. Cutler rather meekly explains that he doesn't have a match tonight. He's there to deliver gear on behalf of his wife. Camera pans over to the left to show MJF, who falls into hysterics, just laughing his ass off. He's like, oh my God, you're such a loser, dude. And then he exits. MJF firing on all cylinders for this episode. Just 2 or 3 segments with him just like, all right, let's take the camera, let's do something great. Sammy G turns to comfort Cutler. He says, hey man, don't listen to him. You've got your cosplay, you've got your D&D. When wrestling fails you, you've got plenty of stuff to fall back on. Cutler swallows it and walks away. As he's walking down the hall, Sammy loudly exclaims, what a nerd! And then Cutler hears it clearly because he isn't even out of the hallway yet. He's maybe 10 yards down the hallway. I thought that was a fun segment. Again, MJF, the highlight, and I love this sort of continued emasculation of Brandon Cutler, this sort of taking him at face value and or below that, and it has me excited about him potentially going at it with MJF and Sammy G and them. I think that'll be fun.
Yeah, it's a good feud for him. Sammy would be a good spot for him to start getting more familiarity with the fans and stuff, and building that feud to build. He's always going to be a mid card guy. It is what it is. But he could be a decent mid card guy.
Yeah.
Sammy and MJF are good spots for that. He needs heels that can work with him, not a Jericho level heel.
Right.
So yeah, that's going to be some fun stuff. It's very funny, talking about the cosplay, the D&D and stuff, because Cutler is at Comic-Con this weekend. So, A, fuck you, Cutler. But B, that's funny to me. Scrolling back through your notes, I love how you, during the promo thing, that you had meme speak and you typed it out like that, that's great. This is why, people need to see our nose to see all the dumb shit we do. Yeah, I think this is a really good spot for Sammy G and Cutler. Sammy G really impressed last weekend. I'm curious. I'm hoping he's not just thrown into the Battle Royale at All Out. I know a lot of these guys probably will be, just because you need bodies for that. But, looking at who's announced for Starrcast, I feel like they could pull a lot of bodies. So I don't think that's really going to be an issue. So we'll see. It's some good stuff, man.
Next, back out front of Daly's place for some reminiscing from the Bucks. They reveal that the idea for this show was not told to them prior to the Jacksonville rally. It was only sort of hinted at by Tony Khan. What follows is some short crowd footage. In the next scene, MJF finds Marco Stunt in the hallway. MJF asks Marco where his parents are, and then briefly leads Marco by the hand to find an adult who can help him.
Fucking amazing.
Then MJF realizes his mistake. He says, "Oh man, this is embarrassing. You're Marco Stunt. I am so sorry. I actually know where your mom is. She's in my hotel room." And then MJF walks away while loudly exclaiming, "He literally looks like he's 6."
Yeah, he does. Since we were at Fight for the Fallen, it's like, why the fuck is there a child out there?
Yeah, I didn't know until I put 2 and 2 together like halfway through the match, because they didn't like announce who he was. It was just a boy and his dinosaur, and then there were 3 of them.
Yeah, and there's just a random child coming out like, this is not going to go well.
More crowd footage, this time of MJF's entrance. Now the librarian Peter Avalon is at the library getting in some reps on some big, heavy hardcover books, stopping only to shush a reader who is laughing entirely too loudly for the library. Stop enjoying yourself. Next, we see the Bucks cutting a BTE promo with the librarians. Nick says, "That was great, you guys. The reason why viewers are watching the buy-in is because of you guys." Matt then says, "Hey, I checked Google Trends. Check the number 1 trend, librarians." He's like, long-term booking. Nick then says, "It's so crazy that our storylines are so much better than the WWF." As they're walking out of screen. It's just very funny, them poking fun at themselves. And I love this, whether it's true or not, them sort of trying to make this librarian angle seem like it was never intended to be good. Like, the idea behind it is that it's stupid and not good, is a really interesting angle to take with it, and is making me enjoy it more. But they've talked about it from the beginning, before this was even a thing on the TV show. Like, the whole idea was that Tony Khan really wanted these librarians, and they didn't think the gimmick was going to work. They thought the gimmick was stupid, right? And so now people are panning the gimmick for being stupid and not working. And they're kind of leaning into it, which I don't think it's genius level work. I don't really know what the end game is, although I assume they have one. I think it's kind of interesting what they're doing with it right now.
Yeah, it is. I don't know, man. It is what it is. I think a lot more people have an issue with Leva being part of the librarians than they do Peter Avalon.
Sure.
Which, having watched both matches now, makes sense.
I think it makes more sense if it was just Peter, because I especially love the idea of what Peter's struggle is right now, where he doesn't like the gimmick, but he's doing the gimmick because it's the only thing they're offering him, right? And so the idea that he's kind of a reluctant librarian, like he's a guy who's been saddled with a bad gimmick that he doesn't like, but he's doing it anyway. I think that works a lot more than what Leva's doing, and I think it would work even more if Leva wasn't there and it was just Peter doing it, and the Bucks were like, "What are you talking about? The gimmick's great. Everybody loves it." Like, it's not working that way at all, and he knows it. I think that's a lot more compelling than this thing with Leva is right now, but
yeah, my kind of thing with all of this is basically they need to take a break from this and seriously sit down with this, because he has flip-flopped so much about the gimmick that it's now pick a side and stick with it.
yeah.
He initially was like, oh, this will be interesting. Then it was like, oh, there's two of us. Oh, I like her. Oh, I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
So, it's the pick, just stick with it. Just pick one.
Yeah, I thought it was so weird that he was so openly down on the gimmick with her in private, because so he throws his book and glasses on the ground. He openly admits that he's not feeling the gimmick, that he only agreed to be the librarian to get his foot in the door. He can barely even read, I guess, is something that he says.
That was, I don't even know what to say about that. That was just great. All right. Okay. We're actually going there.
Yeah, I guess so. But he has a plan to get them out of this mess. Leva can't believe that Peter feels this way. She loves the gimmick. It's not even a gimmick for her. It's a way of life. She even went and got certified as a real librarian. And Peter Avalon is just beside himself. He's like, what?
Yeah, it was really strange to me, that whole thing. But it's like, okay, sure, makes sense. I see why you're doing this. I see where you're going with this. But at the same time, I don't know. I'm ambivalent towards it. I don't have the outrage that a lot of people online have been having to it. It's fun for me, but if you're going to keep doing the fun thing, you need to improve the match quality.
Yeah, Leva's match quality does leave a lot to be desired. I will agree with that. But Leva offers to be his guide in all things librarian, including teaching Peter Avalon how to read. Avalon then says he needs to go talk to Creative and leaves a sad Leva Bates behind, which again just seems like we're kind of ignoring the angle that he's attracted to her in some way. Which is unfortunate.
And that's more of my issue with it, is that you're bouncing all over the place, which is fine in most of what AEW is doing, because they are just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what's sticking.
Right.
But you're not giving this one a chance to breathe.
Yeah.
You're just bouncing all over the place week to week, something new. So it's like, okay, just pick something, stick with it for a month. Give it a month,
Next, some crowd footage during the Lucha Bros match and ladder promo, which really put over more how over they were in the room. It wasn't so much on the broadcast because of all the different mixing going on, but with this crowd cam, like, you can really hear how big they were for that crowd, which was obvious to us because we were there, but really put it across like, oh, everybody in this crowd fucking loves these guys, which is crazy.
Yeah. This was the match that really sold the Lucha Bros to my dad. He was, after watching this one, he was really in on them.
Nice.
He had watched them a little bit in Lucha Underground, but he never, because of how Lucha Underground aired their episodes with so seemingly random with who would be involved in matches. He never actually got to really see a match or consistently see matches from them. So the Double or Nothing and then Fyter Fest, he had the same annoyances that we did, that they kept losing even though they were seemingly doing well. Right. But this one he was really sold. He's pretty interested in that ladder match. He thinks that's going to be pretty awesome too. But I was like, yeah, dude, man, it was amazing. They were doing awesome stuff the whole time. The whole amphitheater was bouncing. It was great. And he was like, that didn't really come across as well on TV, but I could tell that the people in the room were excited.
Yeah. Yeah. Now we're backstage for a short interview with SCU. Kazarian has lost all respect for the Lucha Bros after, quote, what they did to Christopher Daniels, which is rather delusional considering Daniels instigated it by being there when he didn't need to be. Daniels makes a handful of threats and then declares that SCU is the best tag team in the world, which, again, seems rather delusional. Just
fucking loved it, though, man.
Before Kazarian ends the promo with the line, "We'll SCU putos later," which I dug. I think that's it. Using SCU as CU is, I think, funny and something they should do more. Next, Rick Knox is at the sink while Hangman Adam Page is using a nearby urinal. He says, "Hey, Rick, you ever seen a horse's cock?" Rick says nothing. Hangman finishes up and starts to exit. He says, "Just messing around. Little workplace sexual harassment for you." Hangman then turns to leave, and Rick Knox reminds Hangman that he has to wash his hands. Hangman refuses, using the 100% sound logic that his dick is probably cleaner than his hands.
You cannot say that every man in the world has not said this at some point in their lives. Well, like, I don't need to wash my hands. I've just touched my dick. It's cleaner than that.
Right. Especially, a character like Hangman. He's a country man, he gets his hands dirty, So I just love that he was like, my dick's cleaner than my hands. Rick insists. It
also says like, well, you just put your hands all over your dick. So now your dick is disgusting.
Now you got to wash your dick too. Yeah. Rick insists. Hangman refuses. Knox starts the count, and Hangman gets to the sink before the count ends. I thought that was a really funny segment. I'm gonna. You gotta use that logic in real life. That's so funny.
This was the segment of the week for me. Like the you ever seen a horse's cock line, and then just messing around, a little workplace sexual harassment. It's like, oh my god, dude, what the fuck are you saying? But I loved it because he sold it so perfectly, and I want more of this from Hangman, because less of the I'm gonna put my video in a drawer and then my magic screen happens. More Hangman being a dude.
Well, Hangman as a whole this week really turned it up in a big way, and we're going to talk more about that later. We see crowd footage of Jericho's attack on Hangman. I had assumed that he stayed under the ring after the tag match, but this shows him coming back in, I
saw him running when we were.
Kind of weird that they chose to do it that way. I don't know why he didn't just run in at that point, but
it made it seem a little more interesting that he actually ran down next to the ramp and then started stalking Hangman, which I thought made it a better moment.
Right. I mean, it's kind of a misdirection, but I figured the reason they had him come out with the Dark Order was to get him out under the ring when people wouldn't notice, but that's not what they were doing at all, I guess.
I thought it was just I didn't even think that. I thought it, because I remember seeing the guy in the shirt leaving. I thought it was really just like it was to show him being sneaky and he's like almost like he snuck into the show kind of thing,
right?
Which would have been better if he hadn't been announced that he's giving this promo.
There was then some cool footage of Hangman getting treated backstage. Apparently, it was one of Jericho's kicks that split his eyebrow open. Now, some crowd footage of the pull-apart angle. Hangman fucking punched Q in the face really hard. You can see it and hear it on the camera, like, really fucking wanged him in the face. More crowd footage of Kenny and the Bucks entrances. We then cut to the back post match. The Bucks and the Brotherhood are in the same room with some Domino's
fucking
pizzas.
Domino's, man. Like, that was so random.
You could get pizza ordered and you don't have to talk to anybody. I had Jacksonville Domino's.
Why didn't they have catered Cracker Barrel?
Matt apologizes for making fun of them for the last few weeks. The Brotherhood offer the Bucks bites of their pizza as some bizarre show of respect before saying tag team wrestling to one another, which I thought was great. Cody turns towards the camera and says, "I'm back on BTE, baby." He then turns towards Nick and asks why he hasn't been on the show lately. Nick says, "Too many road twos." And Cody says, "You hate it, don't you? Shoot tension," which I love. Nick agrees. Dustin asks Cody if the Bucks are the best tag team in the world, and Cody says, "Absolutely." Then Matt says the Brotherhood are really good, and that he actually had seen their matches before, despite what he said in the ring. The rest is just riffing. Cody hands a slice to Nick and then says, "Best pizza I ever had, BTE." Nick returns with BTE drug free, and then Cody adds BTE drug free, and that's the way to be. They're just like, they're both trying to crack each other up. This goes long. They're just kind of fucking around. I thought it was great and really endearing for them. I also love during the scrums that they did afterwards. Dustin was pulled out from one of the media scrums, and people were asking questions, and they were like, he was like, "Oh, I want to get some pizza, just not Domino's. Domino's is terrible." So they like had legitimately these Domino's pizzas and he wasn't into it.
Yeah.
I thought it was a
fucking Domino's, man.
It's fine. It's only ever fine. It's not good. It's fine.
Fine. Yeah. I thought it was funny stuff. They had a lot of really good, hey, fuck you guys kind of lines. It was interesting that Matt kept selling the arm.
Yeah.
That was an interesting thing. I'm kind of a little annoyed by this because it's consistently with Matt, no matter the match. It's the same arm that whatever reason his arm gets hurt. It's the same arm, and it never means anything. And it's because it's turned into almost like part of their gimmick that, oh yeah, at some point Matt's gonna hurt his arm. So that's just kind of it's an annoyance to me, but it is what it is. I like everything here that I'm with Cody. Why hasn't he been on BTE? What the fuck, boys? And the BTE drug free thing, I hope that becomes a t-shirt. I want that t-shirt.
Viewership down. This comes to us from Kyrian Fisher for the Inquisitor. As noted by PW Mania, Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer newsletter shared the number of live streams and pay-per-view buys for All Elite Wrestling's Fight for the Fallen, which took place last weekend in Jacksonville, Florida. The report states, Fight for the Fallen marked the lowest turnout yet for an AEW event, with an estimated decrease of 10 to 14% compared to Fyter Fest, which was also available to stream for free on Bleacher Report Live. The reason for the drop in ratings likely has something to do with the competition AEW had to contend with on the night, as WWE aired an Evolve event on the WWE network at the same time. Elsewhere, New Japan Pro Wrestling's G1 Climax was shown on Axis as well.
I think there was a UFC event too.
Yes,
there was a lot of things happening last Saturday night. Mm-hmm. I think that those are reasons for that, as well as just some of the people that were watching Fyter Fest were watching it because they were gamer fans. Yes, sure. So I think there's a multitude of pieces to this 10 to 14% decrease.
Right. However, while international pay-per-view buys were reportedly down from Fyter Fest, Fight for the Fallen actually made more money than the previous show due to an increase in the price to purchase the event. The company charged worldwide viewers slightly more for the show since the proceeds were donated toward victims of gun violence. However, Despite the fall in viewership, the numbers shouldn't be interpreted as a sign that the company is in trouble. According to Meltzer, officials were reportedly very happy with the numbers and were pleasantly surprised by how well the AEW shows performed on Bleacher Report Live overall. Furthermore, the events reportedly brought more eyes to the Bleacher Report Live program. Meltzer said that the streaming service's subscribers have increased with each show. American and Canadian viewers who watched the event on Bleacher Report Live didn't have to pay for it, which is probably the main reason why more people signed up to check it out. That said, it's clear that the AEW product is garnering steam and has drawn a lot of people's interests.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's really anything to look at or worry about. I don't think it honestly even means anything as far, grand scheme of things. The drop off you're really going to see is come all out.
Yeah,
because that's a legit pay-per-view. That's $50.
Right.
So you're going to see a lot of drop off there. You may not see like what I think will happen drop off wise, but you may see some actual percentage points, because some of the people that are tuning in for Fyter Fest and Fight for the Fallen aren't necessarily going to just jump in on a $50 show.
That's true, but I also think, first of all, they're going to garner a lot more money, which also means something, and they understand that a free show is going to draw differently than a paid show. And then on top of that, it's also like, you look at the all-out card, it's a substantially better card than any card they've put together so far.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, and we're probably only looking at half of it now. It's already like, wow, this card's really fucking good. Additionally, Meltzer noted that Warner Media officials who showed up to watch the event were very impressed with what they saw. Therefore, they'll likely be happy with their decision to give a relatively unproven wrestling company some widespread exposure on one of their most popular networks this fall. During the post-match press conference, which you can watch via Chris Van Vliet's YouTube page, AEW CEO Tony Khan said that Fight for the Fallen was the most representative show to date for what viewers can expect when the company's weekly show airs on TNT this coming October. All Elite Wrestling's official YouTube page is also showing those scrums. Van Vliet is still the place to be because he puts them up the night of, like, really fast.
Essentially, as soon as he gets finished and edits them very slightly, he puts them up.
Yeah, but AEW is starting to realize that, like, they can make money off of those things, so they shouldn't just be letting Van Vliet show all of them.
I mean, not that you really make money off of YouTube, but yes.
Sure, a little bit when they have the reach that they do, but not a lot.
I still maintain my opinion that 95% of Van Vliet's material should be fucking podcasted.
I think the interview is definitely the interview with JR and stuff like that. I watched the interview with JR, probably half of it, and then I was like, all right, dude. And I watched probably 10 minutes of his interview with Darby Allin before I was like, okay, man, you're very broody.
Would have been great though if you could have just plugged your headphones in and listened to it while you're doing other stuff. Though.
No, dude, I probably would have hung myself by the end of it.
Fair enough, but that's really just my thing. Is a lot. The post media scrums not being podcasts, fine, that makes sense.
Right,
they're like 10 minutes. When you're doing hour-long fucking interviews. Give me the audio.
Speaking of the scrums, tonight, here's a quote from Jericho that I pulled because it was interesting. He said, "Tonight is the first time in 20 years that I've ever done a promo with no script, with no approval of what I say, and really with no idea of what I'm going to say. I was just knowing that I have a point and some directions that I may or may not want to go. When Hangman got busted open, that changed the entire design of the promo, and it was very liberating." This is like so much further in the play your music your way mentality than I even thought they would go. And it'll be really interesting to see how this works. Both because I think it's the right way to go because Jericho's promo seemed great, seemed natural, and even though he hasn't done it in 20 years, it wasn't that fucking hard to do, to talk to a crowd like that when you know how to do it.
I feel
but
like
it
if
also
he had to get like some approval or whatever, half of what he said would have been taken out.
Yeah, it also it does open them up to liability a great deal, but no more than it would be with anybody else if you handed them a script and they just chose not to say it, right? What it does mean is that the WWE cast-offs that they do buy are going to have to adapt pretty quickly. But a lot of the guys that they'd be interested in are guys who did that shit on the indies for years. Like I don't think when Kevin Steen was doing promos in ROH, he was getting approval for what he said on the pre-tape. You know what I mean? They would just do it.
I don't think he got really that much approval for that video he posted up on Twitter on last week either. That was him just like straight free-forming a promo.
And I don't think his stuff with Shane has been really pre-approved to that degree either. I think they've kind of just let him go off.
But yeah, like, Kevin Steen, Adam Cole, all of those guys that you want to see in AEW would be fine.
Yeah. Let's talk about Punk. Punk's not dead. Did you know that?
Yeah.
This comes to us.
Follow him on Twitter.
This comes to us from Justin Barrasso at Sports Illustrated. The summer of Punk rolls on as Sports Illustrated has learned that CM Punk will be a headliner at Starrcast on Saturday, August 31st. That is the day of All Out. Punk ranks among pro wrestling's all-time greats, and his ability to cut some of the most prolific promos in the history of the business only enhanced his legacy. His appearance at Starrcast includes a one-on-one interview as well as meet and greets that same day. The event is independently run, and the Punk appearance is only for Starrcast, not AEW's All Out pay-per-view later that night.
One line that 90% of the internet needs to read.
Yeah, we're going to talk about this. Regardless of whether Punk ever wrestles again, he has created a reservoir of lasting memories in the ring long after his last world title run, which ended in January of 2013. Genuine interactions with his fans still mean a great deal to him. Quote, "A highlight is easily anytime anyone has a story. I do about one signing a year, and the best part is always finding out how you've touched people's lives in a meaningful way. A lot of it can be heavy. Helped someone get clean, helped somehow with the loss of a loved one. I am always touched to know the private, intimate stories people have." Starrcast creator Conrad Thompson knew that bringing Punk to the weekend-long wrestling convention would provide a rare experience for fans. Quote, "We wanted to bring something unique that hasn't been done before at Starrcast. I've always wanted to have Punk at Starrcast, but the timing was never right. And I'm really excited that the stars have aligned for this August. Fans are going to get what they've wanted for a long time, and that is CM Punk with a live mic. It's going to happen at Starrcast." Interesting that Conrad tries to paint this like it hasn't already happened before. We'll get to it.
Yeah.
Starrcast is being held in Punk's hometown of Chicago. Before Punk was a household name, he fell in love with the emotion and physicality of pro wrestling. The city of Chicago has served as the home to a plethora of monumental moments in wrestling's storied history, including some that still resonate with Punk. Quote, "Brett versus Austin is the match that comes to mind," referring to the famed WrestleMania 13 submission match. Brett versus Owen in a cage at SummerSlam 94 too. I was there live for that one. The first event held in the United Center. Third on the list would be Memories of Myself versus Cena at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view in 2011. I think it's flattering when anyone thinks of one of my matches as being up there with the previous two that I mentioned. Starrcast has built a phenomenal reputation for its intimate moments between the people who created everlasting memories in the ring and those who were deeply impacted by them, and the event provides Punk with the opportunity to reconnect with some of his most devoted fans. Quote, knowing that the weekend will be attracting fans from all over the world for AEW, and since I normally do only one signing a year, is a great way to maybe meet people that normally wouldn't get the chance to otherwise, said Punk, looking forward to meeting everyone there, end quote. Jonathan, give me your feelings on this. I know the first thing that we have to discuss is just because he's doing this doesn't mean he's going to be at All Out. Emphatically, it doesn't mean that. He did a meet and greet very similar to this at All In, not at Starrcast, but at the Pro Wrestling Tees store, and he wasn't at All In. He's just doing this because he knows wrestling fans are going to be in town. It doesn't mean he's going to be at All Out.
He lives there. It costs him no money to go do this.
Right.
It's not like he has to get on a plane and go through the whole works of all that. He's driving down the road.
Right.
Pure and simple. This means absolutely nothing. A lot of how this was announced and why this was announced this way is because they're building hype, and you're going to get a lot of buys for All Out because there's going to be a lot of people who are like, oh yeah, Punk's going to be there. That's going to be great. He's at Starrcast, so he's going to be there. Right. Absolutely means nothing.
Yeah.
Separate event, separate entirely. It means nothing.
As much as we would love it, we remind viewers that Starrcast as a company and AEW are not officially affiliated whatsoever. So. Yes, a lot of AEW stars do signings there. Yes, they crop up their events around AEW events, but they're not affiliated.
Certain ones. He's been very picky about it, but yes.
Well, yeah, but he around the big ones, around the big pay-per-views, he does it. Be interesting to see how this one turns out after last one had significant growing pains.
And see, that's my second point is I'm tired of Conrad's carny bullshit.
Yeah, see, significant growing pains is the wrong word because there's a difference between like having growing pains and doing things that should legitimately make people lose trust in you as a promoter.
You can't scam people out of money.
Yeah.
Which is what I mean, people can say what they will. Conrad legitimately scammed people out of money at Starrcast 2.
Yeah, and people in the Discord who went to Starrcast 2 were like, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this does, because Starrcast 2 was a nightmare, basically. So, I mean, it wasn't, Firefest or anything like that, but, like, he legitimately promoted things that he knew weren't going to happen.
Yeah, and, like, the Jericho thing, he promoted things, but it's not even that. He promoted them. He charged people.
Yeah.
And here's the thing with Starrcast is you pay a fee to get in the door. You pay for the podcasts and stuff, especially at Starrcast 2, and I'm pretty sure at Starrcast 3, they just haven't been announced yet. Right. You're paying an additional fee to get into the room to see this podcast or whatever, this event. So there were, I'm sure, people who signed up got a day pass for Starrcast 2, bought the ticket to Jericho's podcast. So, Conrad double dipping there when he knew for a fact months in advance Jericho was not doing it.
Right.
And additionally, you had a lot of people signing up on Fight to watch that podcast. That's not right. That's not okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my real big issue with this. As well as his whole quote that's all a whole bunch of horseshit. It's not true at all. He's trying so hard to be as involved as he can in the wrestling business and this whole quote just strikes me as like a Ric Flair quote, but everybody knows that he could have been at Starrcast 1 Conrad didn't reach out or didn't want to pay him enough money. That's why he was at the Pro Wrestling Tees shop.
Sure.
And who cares if Punk has a live mic? He's going to be putting forth a moderation limit of questions he will ask, and even if he gets asked one of those questions that's on his no, quote unquote no list, he'll fucking spin it in a way where it's a half-assed answer.
Yeah, he won't answer it, or he just won't answer it.
Legitimately say like, I'm not answering that next.
Yeah,
because it's Punk. So that it is what it is. I mean, I know this is going to be the biggest line at Starrcast.
Sure.
But we'll see. I have a lot of reservations to deal with this whole thing. I've voiced them in the past that I think Starrcast needs new management. But we'll see. We'll see what's happening. What ends up going down. We'll see if Punk actually shows up.
I mean, it is it's the closest that he's gotten to doing a pro wrestling event, but it's still not doing a pro. Anybody who thinks that this is an indication that he'll be at All Out more than anything else is wrong. Like, they can be and are completely unrelated. But I mean, I think Jericho openly talking about him is almost more of an indication than this is.
Yeah, they're doing some stuff where you're building the angle for whichever way it goes.
Right.
If it happens, they have the angle built. If it doesn't happen, they have the angle still built where Jericho can go through and talk shit about him. So it means it's good, but on both sides it means nothing. We'll see what ends up coming of this. But again, take every bit of anything that's being announced and happening at Starrcast with a massive grain of salt.
Two pieces of MJF news: the youngest and fastest rising star in professional wrestling today, and the salt of the earth, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, has signed a multi-year contract extension with AEW as of this week, as first seen in a hilarious video released on the AEW Twitter account on Thursday. In addition, MJF's lifetime ban from Starrcast events has been lifted for Starrcast 3 in another video that you can watch on MJF's Instagram account that's just hilarious. I hope that he heckles Punk's interview and then gets into a fist fight to start an angle.
Okay, so did you see what he's announced for Starrcast?
Yeah, he's doing his own panel.
Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous with MJF.
Yeah.
I want to go to this. Yeah, that's gonna be amazing. I want to go to this. That's gonna be fucking money.
He's great. Great that he's signing an extension. I'm surprised it's taken this long, honestly, for him to get a multi-year deal. I'm surprised they didn't lock him down way sooner, but
I'm honestly just hoping he gets a better shirt.
Yeah, me too. Especially because Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus have like 4 shirts now.
And they're awesome. They're all awesome. But MJF just has this one, and it's like, it's cool, but it's like, I'll never fucking wear that.
Lots of great new shirts on Pro Wrestling Tees for A Boy and His Dinosaur, which is the best one out of all of them. The Dark Order, Kenny Omega, the Brotherhood, and also they put up Fight for the Fallen event merchandise, as well as some extra things.
Version of it because there was a different version of it at the show. There's like the event shirts had stuff on the back of them.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. The Road to All Out, episode 1. Interesting to note that with this series, the digital home of the Road 2 series has moved from the Nightmare Family YouTube channel to the All Elite Wrestling YouTube channel. A long overdue, great decision for branding. Yeah, I didn't notice it either until I had to go back and do it for notes because I'm subscribed to both and it just popped up in my shit, right? Also seems like they've gone to be a cheeky asshole all out on graphics as this series starts with a brand new motion graphic intro that they made somebody work very hard on.
Every bit about the production side of this video was purely cheeky asshole. From the intro graphic to the AEW Control Center.
Yeah.
To who they had doing that.
Yeah. Well, oh my God, we got to talk about it. Straight into 3 minutes of excellent cinematic montage from Fight for the Fallen, which is awesome. But I didn't break it down because there's really no point. We've all been over that. We then cut to a segment called Control Center, hosted by Tony Schiavone. In what may be the absolute perfect use for Tony Schiavone if you're gonna hire him. It's an all too familiar format for pro wrestling. Commentator standing in front of an out of a collection of out of focus video screens. Yeah, it's green screen, but out of focus video screens. Introducing segments. There's something delightfully old school about it. WWF used to do it. WCW used to do it. And I love that they sort of took this old format back in, because they don't do it anymore. This sort of studio hosted show with sort of pre-tapes. Schiavone takes us for a recap of what happened between Jericho and Hangman at Fight for the Fallen, and then after that bumps us out to a promo by the Hangman Adam Page. I want to say before we start this promo, people online have been complaining about, oh, Hangman, I don't get it. It just seems like the Elite didn't want to put the belt on themselves, so they put it on Hangman. I don't think he deserves to be there. If you watch that promo and you still think this, like, I'm sorry. Like,
if you watch this promo and you've watched any of his matches in AEW and you don't think that he deserves the belt, then we really need to talk.
Yeah, he's...
Also, I don't think he's getting the belt.
Yeah, I don't think he is either. I think Jericho's going to win it, but he deserves to be, like, this promo is great.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. I could not agree more. This was an amazing promo.
Hangman is home in a beautiful...
Part at the end was a little fucked up, but it was...
Hangman is home in a beautiful green field, kissed by the morning sun. His black eye remains, his stitches a constant reminder of Jacksonville. The Hangman tells us that he wakes every morning. He washes his face, and honestly, usually he doesn't like what he sees due to a lifetime of choices he'd rather forget. In his words, he's done some bad shit, pissed away a lot of opportunity. But
I figured it was because he thought he was fat.
Yeah, due to his body dysmorphia, right? Not full gear ready. This morning, the Hangman looked in the mirror and he smiled. Hangman then does the unthinkable and thanks Chris Jericho for making him feel alive for the first time in months. When he saw the damage this morning, he realized that he didn't want it to heal. Hangman then rips the stitches out of his forehead mid-promo in close-up.
Real fucked up, dude. Real fucked up.
He says, I want to feel it. I want this blood to crust over my eyes at night, and I want it to drip hot and red and fresh on the bathroom sink every morning between now and August 31st.
I loved it. I also got a little bit of a Beer Fest vibe from this, because there's a part in Beer Fest where one of the main characters has a black eye, and he's like, "Yeah, I wish I could keep this black eye through the whole year." So they just keep punching him in the face. That's just me. I thought it was funny. Ripping your stitches out, that's hardcore, dude.
Yeah, dude.
I loved all of this. I thought it was a really good promo. He did a lot of really good stuff. There was some, two meaning callbacks, like with his looking in the mirror, I don't like what I see.
Right.
But dude, it's great. I think I don't want another promo from Hangman before All Out. That's enough.
Yeah, if they keep reusing this thing, man, like, okay. I don't think that it needs that. I don't think that we need constant promos and restating and shit like that. Like the Dustin and Cody match, they did 2 promos.
I do want to see some behind the scenes or some stupid shit on being the Elite of them talking about. I was like, Why the fuck did you rip your stitches out?
Hangman appreciates the reminder that all that stands between him and the AEW World Championship is a little bit of blood and guts. And after Saturday, he knows that he has more of that to give than Chris Jericho. There is not a thing the Hangman won't do to make sure that on the morning of September 1st, he sees a champion in the mirror. I thought it was a great promo, really intense, really to the point, really painted him as a dangerous outlaw character. And this is the Hangman I want to see more of. I think to their detriment, and the reason why people have thrown these criticisms at Hangman is because it really hasn't been this Hangman. It's been kind of goofy, Full Gear Challenge Hangman, and that kind of guy up until now.
That's kind of the difference that people are going to start drawing in their own minds, that being the Elite is the funny joke show.
Right.
And Road to, or anything that really happens outside of being the Elite, is them being serious.
Right.
So you have to start, separating that out in your mind, because they do dumb shit on being the Elite, proven by the fact that Hangman puts all kinds of media in toasters and the TV screen works.
Shivani bids us farewell from Control Center, and then which, the Control Center thing I love that they're bringing it in. I don't know that it adds anything that isn't already there, but it's
a good thing to start before TV, though.
Sure, yes, to introduce as a concept.
Doing that, as well as how they did this episode with it'll be live at 8 p.m. on Wednesday night,
right, is
very clearly getting people, tuned to that schedule of Wednesday nights is when the the thing. So
right.
They're subtly doing it, as well as we'll see if it continues. If it continues, they're 100%. It's going to be Wednesday nights.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. I think it was cool. I like that they introduced it now. I think they need to do some more stuff, but for Road to All Out, where they 100% explain time limits, everything to do with their rule set, and the gamut before we hit All Out. That needs to be in stone set.
Yeah. There's a couple of things I'd like them to fully take on in their rule set. I'd like to see them go to a 20 count. I would also like to see them do lucha rules for tags and just admit that that's what they're doing. I think it would make it easier on everybody if they just did that.
It definitely make it easier on the refs.
Well, yeah, JR wouldn't fucking like it, but it would make it easier for everybody if they did it, and if they just admitted that's what they're doing, rather than pretending they're doing American style tags and then just like not really doing them.
Only doing it half the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Now we move to the interview with JR and Sean Spears. I transcribed very little of this, choosing instead to only present the important information and the things that I found interesting about it. But you can go and watch it if you want. It's a lot of postulating from Sean Spears, a lot of pontificating. That
it was good though.
It was good. It was good. It seemed a little rehearsed from him.
Oh, it was 100% rehearsed, but yeah, it felt overly rehearsed. I agree.
Yeah. JR got his shirt for this interview from worldsugliestshirts.com. The interview takes place in one of the VIP boxes at TIAA Bank Field, which is interesting. They must have just taken him up there and shot that during the weekend. Sean Spears takes a while to circle around to a point, but informs JR that he has 5 people in the business that he would consider, quote, close friends, end quote. He says this is by choice, but somebody would say that whether it was true or not. Cody was one of those 5 people for him. But then Cody called him a good hand, and that's why he's mad, essentially. Spears was upset and deeply shaken by seeing the same sort of good hand shackle that he'd grown used to in WWE placed around his neck by a close friend in AEW. And he's really adamant, he's like, you don't call someone a good hand. But he never really really explains why, and I think that's kind of a missed opportunity in this promo. That just really would have driven it home for me. He never says, how dare Cody look at me and say that I don't have what it takes to be a star. He just sort of says, you don't call someone a good hand in this business. And he makes the argument a lot more about words and not feelings, which just made me confused, just kind of like, oh man, well, I really think you've missed the opportunity to really explain why this is a problem, which is what the idea of the interview is, right? And maybe he felt as though everyone would know, but not everybody watching is going to know. And even if they do know, sometimes it's important to come out and say why, even if you think people know clearly, and be like, fuck you, I'm a good hand, like I'm a star, like I have the opportunity to be big business, and the idea that anybody would relegate and marginalize me, like that's literally CM Punk's entire career narrative, right? Like that's his story, and why people love him so much is because he's this sort of I see you to anybody who's ever felt that way in a job or a relationship or whatever. This sort of, as he says, voice for the voiceless, voice of the voiceless, right? This sort of backlash against being thought of as a B player or whatever. And so it seems weird that he sort of just made it all about the good. It seems almost like he's mad at the words and not mad at the ideas behind it.
That makes sense. Yeah, it was a good video. That they filmed this at one of the VIP boxes made a lot of sense with what in the small amount of drama that ended up happening with him the week before, leading up to Road to or Fight for the Fallen.
Right.
I feel like that's also why this kind of felt a little strange as a promo, because I think they ended up having to do it a lot quicker than they had planned.
Right.
Even so, I didn't mind it. I think they're building him up to be a good character. I agree with you. They should have said some of the stuff about why being a good hand is a bad thing in wrestling. It makes sense to me, you and I. It makes sense to people that have been watching wrestling for a while, but you're not really helping your new fans or your casual fans to understand what the fuck's going on.
Right. Spears then calls Cody a leech. He takes credit for teaching Cody how to wrestle and then feels like he was left in Cody's wake alongside Bob Holly, Ted DiBiase Jr., Damian Sandow, and others, which they bleep Sandow's last name, which I thought was funny. Really doing everything they can to not be sued, because they know WWE would take it if they had it.
Yeah.
Sean Spears says Cody has forgotten that Sean was there for the 50th wedding anniversary of his parents, for Thanksgiving dinners, and more. Sean Spears then says that he has an ace up his sleeve as Tully Blanchard walks into the frame and tells JR that the interview is over. We have since learned that Tully Blanchard has been signed for a multi-show deal to be a manager for Sean Spears at the very least, if not a sort of expansion of a Four Horsemen type stable. Super interesting. Tully Blanchard's like a very poetic choice, something that could really would really come to mind of Tony Khan specifically, but that team together because of Tully Blanchard's significant feud with the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, of his sort of involvement in that era of wrestling that they're kind of trying to harken back to more and more. I think him being the manager for Sean Spears is really smart, and they can kind of reinvent the character as they kind of did with when Dutch Mantel became Zeb Coulter or whatever, or something like that, I know you definitely have more feeling about this than I do, because Tully Blanchard's a more significant figure in your history than mine.
Yeah, I remember a lot of Tully Blanchard just growing up watching WCW, seeing him with the Four Horsemen, it was a lot of really cool, some nostalgia stuff, but it was also just really cool to me seeing, such a legend in the industry coming in with Sean Spears. I think some of the things online that I'm reading is like, oh yeah, Tully's in here, so Tessa's coming. It's like, don't stop. You need to stop making these connections to everything. Tessa would be great in AEW.
Tessa would be fantastic. I think they need Tessa. I think they need Tessa. I think they need Taya. I think they need some better women's competitors.
Just also more of them.
Yeah.
But there's a difference there. It's not yes, a connection is being made, but don't paint this up to being the same as Ric Flair getting Charlotte in WWE.
Yeah.
It was really cool. Sean Spears has been hinting on Twitter all week, or it may not have been him, but I remember seeing it in multiple places of that he would be having a manager.
Yes.
And then they came through and it's fucking Tully Blanchard. That's awesome, man. I'm super down for that.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. I think it's a genius pull, especially with who he's facing. Cody. Like, there's so much history there, and AEW is in a position now where that's kind of the one thing that they don't have that WWE does have, is this sort of long history. And so reaching back into this and saying, like, no, pro wrestling history is our history, and so we do have that, while also being like, we're brand new. I think is sort of having their cake and eating it too, in a really smart way. Whereas I think a less deft company would try and pretend like they just invented pro wrestling in 2019, and no other wrestling has ever existed. You know what I mean? They have chosen not to do that on multiple occasions, and I think that's really smart. I didn't throw in any news here from the AAA versus AEW event that they did, because nothing of great significance happened. But
Conan had a promo.
Oh, cool.
Where he called out Cody. That was really the only thing I know. I didn't even watch it, man.
Yeah. That was
fucking start, and it was supposed to start at 9 p.m. Eastern. It was late, and it's also like the match that I want to watch is going to be like midway through the show. I'm not staying up and wrecking myself for work to watch AAA.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but I
don't even know who won, dude.
Saw the results, and if anything newsworthy had happened, we would have heard about it. And
yeah, it was more noticing to me that I knew this thing was happening. The next day, I didn't see anything about the results. I didn't see the rest of the card being announced. I didn't see anything at all. The only reason I even know there was a Conan promo is because it popped up on Twitter this morning.
Right. It's a partnership, but they're not really using it to further any angles for AEW. So we're still gonna...
Very one-way partnership.
We're still going to talk about Triple Mania when we get there, but it so far has been a lot of just sort of like, you can have our guys on your shows, but it's not canon necessarily. Or it is canon, but it's like little canon, not big canon. So... Yeah. So I didn't write anything
more
here.
of just like, hey guys, you wanna stop copying every single fucking match that we book?
Well, it just seems like a missed opportunity to just do what AEW is like. People have already seen those matches, so use these players in a creative way. But it's AAA, so they don't do that. Oh well. YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, podcast services everywhere. Subscribe, review, give us 5 stars, just like Meltzer. It makes us feel, so sweet. Jonathan, how sweet?
Too sweet, man. Too sweet.
Too sweet, man. Facebook.com/Seeing the Elite. Twitter @Seeing the Elite. Shout out to the champ, Shane O'Mac. tinyurl.com/Seeing the Elite to join the Discord server. Fans all over the world sharing AEW news with each other and discussion as it happens, as well as discussion about, oh man, so many things this week. Marvel Ultimate Alliance and the announcement of Phase 4. So we've been having a blast over there.
Some very awesome discussions that we probably should have switched channels for, but it was a lot of fun and no one cares.
But we're having a blast. Thank you so much for joining us week after week here on Seeing the Elite. We're going to be here with you in the lead up to All Out, and we're going to have an awesome episode from that weekend, travelogue from that weekend, where we talk about everything that we're going to do in Chicago, which is going to be a blast. Other than that, I don't really have anything more for these people. Jonathan, what about you?
I do. If anyone here is interested in Starrcast meet and greets, they are the first wave of them is available for purchase. If there's someone in particular you really want to see, go check the list out of the announced meet and greets, and if that person is on that list, go ahead and get that ticket. They will sell those out. So if you want to make sure you can meet someone in particular, definitely hit that up and take care of that.
Other than that, thank you so much. We'll be back with you next week for another chapter of Seeing the Elite in AEW podcast. Until then, go out and change the world.